Hi, everyone. This is Inside the Americas. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Bomb threats terrorize almost 20 predominantly black universities in the States. Those threats coming just as Black History Month gets underway. In Canada, anti-vaxxers and other protesters against pandemic restrictions take to the streets of Ottawa. The so-called Freedom Convoy featuring some demonstrators waving Nazi flags. And the fallout from the oil spill in Peru continues. Close to 12,000 barrels of crude oil have seeped into an area slightly larger than Paris, causing devastation to wildlife there. I'm Jeannie Godula. Bomb threats have been disrupting classes at close to 20 predominantly black universities in the United States. After a handful of threats on Monday, the first day of Black History Month in the U.S., more than a dozen campuses went into lockdown over new threats the next day. That comes as America continues to reckon with racial injustice over the high-profile police killings of black Americans like George Floyd. Tensions are also high over an ongoing battle on the public school teaching of critical race theory. That says racism is not just the product of individual bias, but embedded in America's legal systems and policies. Solange Mougin explains.
Campuses like this one at Bowie State University, they're supposed to be havens of tranquility, ivory towers for the pursuit of knowledge. But on Monday, this predominantly black university in Maryland was forced to shut down campus. As announced on social media, they'd received a bomb threat, and Bowie State University wasn't alone. After a series of threats across the United States on Monday to historically black colleges and universities, which are known as HBCUs, on Tuesday, over a dozen campuses also received bomb threats. While no explosives were found, the White House said the FBI was investigating.
We are assessing what we think the origin, the reasoning, the motivation behind it is. We absolutely are behind these HBCUs. We want to make very clear that we take these threats seriously.
The many threats come on the first 2 days of Black History Month, and as the U.S. continues to grapple with rampant racial injustice, a rise in white supremacy groups, and concerns over voter suppression.
Whenever African Americans begin to kind of push for rights, push for recognition, our institutions have been targeted by those who seek to silence those voices.
Howard University, perhaps the most known of the U.S.'s historically black colleges, received multiple threats. Their head of police expressed relief that no bombs were found, but lamented the drain on the university's resources and the unnecessary mental burden that such threats of violence create.
Our picture of the week might be a familiar one to you. It is the cover of Mouse, the only graphic novel to have won the Pulitzer Prize. But for the McMinn County School Board in Tennessee, this retelling of Nazi death camps during World War II using cats and mice is too adult-oriented for 13-year-olds. The decision to ban the book from the 8th grade curriculum, though, seems to have backfired. Since Mouse, written by Art Spiegelman, was banned last month, it's become a bestseller, hitting the #1 spot on Amazon. Now, also this week, a discussion about the Mouse ban got Whoopi Goldberg suspended for 2 weeks from her hit TV show, The View. That's after the Oscar-winning actress and comedian said the Holocaust was not about race. Just hours later, Goldberg apologized, but not before her comments drew condemnation from several prominent Jewish leaders. In Canada this week, hundreds of truck drivers blocked roads in Ottawa with the so-called Freedom Convoy. The mass demonstrations against pandemic restrictions were initially triggered by a vaccine mandate imposed on drivers entering Canada from the U.S. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau lashed out against demonstrators, though, after some of them were seen waving Nazi flags during the protests. Catherine Viette has the details.
For days, residents in Ottawa have had to deal with gridlock. The demonstrations have seen hundreds of convoys coming from all across the country to bring Ottawa to a standstill. And it's not just drivers that have joined in.
But everybody here is so supportive. It's good to know that, but I'm here for the long haul. I'm not going anywhere until we get something done here.
The protest initially began as a call to end a vaccine mandate for cross-border truckers. Under the rules, unvaccinated Canadian drivers would need to get tested and quarantine when they re-enter from the U.S. But now they've grown into demonstrations against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the government's COVID-19 policies. Over the weekend, some of the protesters in Parliament Hill resorted to vandalism and were seen dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier. Speaking from quarantine after contracting COVID-19, the Prime Minister condemned the protests.
Freedom of expression, assembly, and association are cornerstones of democracy, but Nazi symbolism, racist imagery, and desecration of war memorials are not. It is an insult to memory and truth. Hate can never be the answer.
Several prominent public figures in the U.S. have endorsed the so-called Freedom Convoy, including former President Donald Trump. And Tesla CEO Elon Musk has tweeted his support for the truckers. Canadian authorities have begun to break up a massive convoy blocking a major U.S. border crossing in Alberta. It's part of the larger protest movement. For their part, the demonstrators remain defiant, saying they're prepared to stay as long as it takes to get what they want.
Our number of the week is this one, 19,780. That's the number of coconuts filled with liquid cocaine that were discovered this week in Colombia. Police found the massive shipment inside a container at the port of Cartagena on its way to Genoa in Italy. The water in the tropical fruit had been exchanged for liquid cocaine. An investigation is now underway to see where the container was loaded in the hopes of finding out who sent it. Also this week, protests in Chile against Venezuelan migrants. Close to 25 died in a landslide in Ecuador, and a fourth journalist was killed in Mexico in less than a month. Peter O'Brien has the wrap of the big stories this week out of Latin America.
Ecuador's capital hasn't seen flooding like this for almost 20 years. On Monday, rain soaked Quito for 17 hours straight. A landslide flowed down this street for more than a kilometre.
The strong current threw me to this side. Thanks to God, there were 2 lampposts that stopped the water from dragging me. Otherwise, it could have been worse.
Not everyone was as lucky. Many have died, and the city declared 3 days of mourning. Since October, heavy rains have hit 22 of Ecuador's 24 provinces. Roberto Toledo was filming a video column here at his colleague's office in Michoacan when 3 gunmen arrived and shot him dead. The website he worked for, Monitor Michoacan, posted a tribute and said they had been receiving threats for reporting on government corruption. Toledo is the 4th journalist to be killed in Mexico in less than a month. The murder of Lourdes Maldonado on January the 23rd sparked protests across the country. The government says more than 50 journalists have been killed in Mexico in the last 3 years. Protests against migrants flared up in the coastal city of Iquique, Chile, over the last week. On Monday, shops shut and trucks blocked roads. The day before, thousands marched through the city, with some protesters breaking up migrant camps on the way.
We're protesting against the bad Venezuelans that have been coming to our city.
Iquique cannot cope with crime anymore. It's enough.
In response, Chile's interior minister is sending a large contingent of police to reinforce Iquique. Rodrigo Delgado says all foreigners without legal residence or criminal records will be kicked out of the country by the end of the month.
And finally, in Peru, the after effects continue after last month's oil spill at a refinery off the country's Pacific coast. Close to 12,000 barrels of crude oil spilled onto 24 beaches in an area slightly larger than Paris. The ecological disaster is having a massive impact on wildlife, as Thomas Nicolon reports.
A cormorant who no longer has the strength to fight or fly. This team of vets takes him for a laboratory examination. There may still be time to save him.
When the animals are stable and their feathers are not too oily, we wash them. We take them away to be taken care of by a group of vets. Some birds don't seem to have spots, but they have oil inside their beaks. There's a lot of oil, it's all black.
For many animals, it's already too late. Countless carcasses are picked up throughout the day.
A lot of birds were in direct contact with the oil, and it's clogged up their wings. This means that they lose their ability to fly and swim, and they end up dying in the water. Others are poisoned because they eat fish that have been contaminated by oil.
In this reserve north of Lima, scientists from the National Protected Areas Service are trying to compile a list of animals affected by the oil spill.
Ya, acá hay uno empetrolado, el que está más arriba solo, ¿lo ves?
There are aspects that we've not yet assessed, such as microorganisms, aquatic invertebrates, fish, or even algae. It will still take time to measure the real impact of this oil spill.
On Lima's beaches, the cleanup is still underway with the help of hundreds of volunteers. The government reevaluated its original estimation. It's not 6,000, but about 12,000 barrels of crude oil that have spilled on the Peruvian coast.
That's all the time we have for this Inside the Americas. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week for all the news from north to south.
It's the world seen from Paris. Hi, everyone. I'm François Picard. Join us for the France 24 debate, the crossroads between different perspectives, rival interests, and your feedback. Only on France 24 and France24.com.